We start with three women, Zola Taylor, Elizabeth Waters, and Amira Eagle, each claiming to be Mrs. Frankie Lymans. Cut to a prison in 1985. Elizabeth is locked up, calling her lawyer about royalties for the song Why Do Fools Fall in Love. Next thing you know, they're in the music producer's office. Finding out Frankie somehow had 3 wives, each swearing they were his legal when he died. Then court proceedings began to figure out who's telling the truth and who gets the money. Flashback to 1950s. Frankie and some boys audition for a record deal. Their career takes off. Little Richard shows up in the court later, making a whole spectacle. But first, we flash to his version of Frankie and Zola's marriage. Frankie tries flirting with Zola.
The Brothers! Baby, you are one fine thing.
He keeps performing, getting famous, and getting in trouble, like when he danced with a white woman on live TV. He keeps chasing Zola, who's not interested, until a cafe moment. Frankie ends up giving a homeless man money. Zola softens and asks about his life. Cue a sad alcoholic dad story. The group breaks up over Frankie being pushed solo. He sulks, Zola comforts, and yes, they sleep together. Now for Elizabeth's story. Elizabeth meets Frankie while shoplifting. He invites her to a show, and she ends up falling for him. Zola interrupts her testimony.
Bullshit! Frankie didn't wear no open shirt. He was class act. You making him out to be some whore like you.
Frankie takes Elizabeth back to the apartment he shares with Zola. Just messy. Elizabeth finds track marks, but instead of leaving, she sleeps with him too. Girl. They move in together, but red flags. He's a junkie with a $20 a day habit. She hides money, he loses it, acts crazy, storms off. Later, goons beat Frankie up in their house. Elizabeth pays them off, and now they're stuck living with her mama. He's broke, useless, still doing drugs, and she's buried him anyways. He ends up performing, losing his voice, and passes out. She checks him into rehab, pays the bill by tricking on the street, then gets arrested. She comes home to an eviction notice and finds Frankie drunk. They argue, and he grabs her dog, dangles it out the window, and drops it. And that's the end of them. But just wait. In 1965, she runs into him again at Zola's house, where Zola ends up confronting them. Now for Zola's story. Zola's flashback to confronting Frankie over her missing mink coat. He gave it to Elizabeth, but of course he lies. She moves to LA, marries someone else, but Frankie calls her years later asking for help. She lets him mooch at her house. She admits she divorced her husband in Mexico, though no record exists. She helps Frankie land a TV gig. They celebrate. He says he loves her, and of course, they sleep together. They end up getting married in Mexico, but there's no proof. Later, Zola leaves him in her house while she tours. She comes back 5 months later. Her home is destroyed, money gone, and Frankie joined the army. Another life ruined. Now for Amira's story. Amira paints Frankie as a gentleman. She met him through her sister's fiance. At first, he's creepy, walking into her bathroom.
I was getting out of the tub, and he said,
Looking good, dog.
and I said,
But he apologizes. He does handyman work, gardens, and wins her over. They get engaged, married, and sleep together. We see him going to church, but still fighting demons. Then the army shows up. He's AWOL and gets dishonorably discharged. Now back to present day. Zola and Elizabeth make a deal to split winnings. Elizabeth recalls her last days with Frankie. He chased music again, but died a week later from an overdose. We see his final days, begging a producer for another chance, getting rejected, relapsing in a bathroom, and dying. The funeral follows. Meanwhile, producer Morris Levi reveals he slapped his name on Why Do Fools Fall in Love, pocketing $4 million while Frankie's estate got nothing. The three women drank together, promising to split any money, but in court, Elizabeth was still married under common law. Zola had no marriage proof. Amira had a traditional marriage. So Elizabeth wins, but instead of sharing, she dips out with her lawyer. In confessional, Zola bows out. Amira appeals and wins, but legal fees eat the money. She ends up with only $15,000, the same amount Morris offered at the start. Little Richard closes with a statement.
Well, honey, I could have told them, wasn't none of them going to get no money. Ain't nobody ever gave us nothing.
And that ends this movie, and here are my final thoughts. Alright, let's get into this movie, Why Do Fools Fall in Love. I watched this when I was younger. I loved this movie, except for the part when he killed that poor puppy, okay? That was tragic for me. It actually made me not watch this movie for a very long time after. It's giving me For Colored Girls tease, and if you know, you know. Now, one thing I noticed about this movie is that this little boy must have had all types of charisma because he pulled 3 different women and all 3 of them were older than he was. So I think the actresses that played the wives did a great job. Obviously, there's some all-stars in this movie as well. One thing I didn't like is that, like, once I did some research of the actual women that he was married to, a lot of them weren't lighter skinned. Only one was, which was Zola Taylor, and the other 2 were beautiful brown skinned women. So I don't know why they couldn't have found actresses that favored them. They probably chose who they could possibly get better views out of. I mean, we have Vivica A. Fox, you have Halle Berry, and oh my gosh, I don't know the last lady's name, but she was in Waiting to Exhale and a couple other movies as well. The cameo by Little Richard was one of my favorite parts of this movie. I actually have met him and he was very kind and nice in person, and I just really enjoyed seeing him and how flamboyant his personality was. Okay, let's talk about the different wives. So Zola Taylor, she was a singer in the Platters and she had her own career and they met on the road. And I felt really bad for her because she had her house taken away from her because he destroyed it and he was constantly stealing from her and giving it to other women. And doesn't that sound like a man though? Oh my gosh, how many stories have you heard about men taking the money that they have and compiled with their wives and using it for their side chick? Like, ill. And hunty, this was in the 1930s and 40s and they still was doing it. What? Okay. Then we have Elizabeth, which is the one played by Vivica A. Fox. She was out here tricking on the side of the street. She was getting arrested. She was out there putting him in rehab, trying to help him out, and he just kept on failing, then ended up killing her dog. And homegirl went through it trying to keep her man. And I just want to say, it's never that serious. The only story that sounded okay was with the last lady, Amira. So it looked like he did what a lot of different guys do, and he portrayed a different version, or the version he thought that was going to get her in order to get her. I hate to say he was a fuck up, but he was a fuck up all the way around. He was doing the absolute most. And I don't think any of these women left the situation unscathed. And is it possible that he was able to change at that age? Because at that point he was about 23, 24, 25 when he finally passed away. Maybe, but I would say highly unlikely. So it sounds like maybe she was able to stabilize him for a little bit, which is also too much damn work. But yeah, it was a great movie. If I could rate it, maybe a 7 or 8 out of 10. It's not bad, but it's also not one that I'm just like, I want to go watch that again. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys, and catch me on the next one. Bye.